Hey everyone, welcome to Postman Galaxy 2021. I hope you've been enjoying all the talks. For this talk, we're going to be talking about games. And in particular, we're going to be talking about how we can iterate game features, game online features rapidly, and being confident that we are still going to make developers and other game developers to be happy. Games industry is a fascinating industry. 2020 is a hard and unprecedented year for everyone. But despite all that, games industry is actually growing. I think it grew by 20%, and in fact, like it is bigger at the moment than the global movie and North American sports industry combined. Now, what contributed to the growth? There has been a big shift in games industry for the past 10 years or so, right? Where basically you're moving from the traditional, you make a game, you put it on the shelf, and then people buy it, and then you start making the new game into something that's more like an engagement, where basically you put the game out and the players, and then you build a player base, and then the player base would grow with your game, right? And then at that point, we're looking at the games that's going to be having a pretty sizable user base for a long period of time before you sunset it, and then you move off to the next one, or you just keep on going, I guess. Now that is called games as a service, and it's not just large games that I have in my slide. Not just the Fortnite or the Roblox or the Minecraft, but it's also games that's like indie games, right? Like Among Us, for instance. So it's definitely something that is quite a trend. Now, the thing about games as a service is that one of the key principle is player engagement, right? It's the fact that like it thrives on having a devoted player base that would want to stay in your game and will go through the game evolution along with the players itself, right? If there will always be the next set of generation of players, right? And that's when you know that like your game made it, is like if you actually made that transition between one generation to the other gamer generation. And what that means is that if you get your player base to lose interest, that is trouble, right? It means that like and it's very easy these days for players to lose interest and they move off to the next set of games, because let's face it, there's a lot of games that is being produced because it's a large industry. So the question now becomes is like, what are the things that you can do as a game developers to keep your player base happy while also satisfying this whole being able to iterate and churn out new features such as seasons and new game mode and new creative way to do things at the same time, right? So my name is Raymond Arifianto. I'm the VP of Tech in Accelbyte. I'll be accompanied by a couple of my colleagues in Accelbyte. Gufron is the QA manager, and Iqbal, the QA engineer. You'll see them in a little bit. So who are we? Who are Accelbyte? Long story short, we've been around for about 3 years. Some of us that's been in the games industry for a while, who's passionate about like creating the best online experience for game developers and players. We got together and we built Accelbyte, and yeah, I mean like we're excited to have some of our partners and clients that we are supporting. Let's go back to the online ecosystem, right? So now let's say that like you are, what does it take to have a successful online games? Now, these are just some of the examples, but these are the things that absolutely you would need, right? I mean, like, so for the player-facing services, you would need to have your kind of player identity, player authentication, and then now that you can identify your players, which is very key. Like if you make things like cross-platform, that is like the fundamental thing you want, is like being able to identify that's like, oh, here's your players. They came from Xbox, they came from PlayStation, they came from Steam and all that. Like that is like fundamental, right? So beyond that, then you have your multiplayer services like your matchmaking, your stats, your leaderboards, and then you go into your inventory, your cloud save, and so on and so forth, right? Virtual wallet, party, and so on. So those are the player-facing services. As in, if the service goes down, player will be impacted, right? And then there is the developer-facing services, who are not necessarily player-impacting services, but it is very, very important for these services to exist and to operate in the best capacity, right? I mean, like these are your crash report, these are your telemetry, so that you learn more about the players, and like learning more about the players and knowing what your players want or don't want is fundamental to make a successful games as a service. Because again, you would want to evolve your game based on what your players want, right? So what happens when the services are down, right? Or when you introduce a bugs to these environments, to these services? Obviously, is like if your player facing services are down, then you'll have unhappy players, right? And again, like because everything revolves around retention and everything revolves around engagements. If they're not playing your game, they would just move off to another game, and then at that point, like you might lose your players, and that is very, very important, right? Um, when the developer-facing services are down, then your developers will be running things blind, right? Or if the data that they need is not there, then they will be introducing bugs, and then quality is going to be down, and then again, it will be unhappy players and all that, right? There's that game that I'm not going to say the name, right? But like there are a lot of bugs. People are reporting bugs on that game. And it's pretty sad because like, a lot of people are very excited about the game, right? And I think like having those developer facing services to be rock solid is fundamental. So you can catch these things and you can mold the game accordingly. Now, here's the challenge, right? Again, like the currency for the real currency for games as a service that fuels the growth of the whole industry is the fact that you need to iterate fast. You need to introduce new game modes. You need to be nimble. Like if you see the evolution of Fortnite as an example, right? It's been fascinating because where Fortnite was when it was released until now, it's crazy. It's like it's been how many seasons, how many game modes? Like every season that they churn out, there is a corresponding season pass, and then there is always new fresh things, right? Like the freshness is what you need, and fresh means iteration. You need to know what you're putting out there for your players, and you need to delight them, because the last thing you want as a game, if you are making games as a service, is a stale game. On the other hand, you would want to keep everything running. You don't want to introduce bugs, or if you do introduce bugs, you want to be able to address it as soon as possible. You want to keep it high quality, and last but not least, you want to maintain some kind of backward compatibility, right? So how do we do this? So in Accelbyte, like we looked at this pretty early on, and it affects how we architected the whole thing, right? So we go with microservices because we know that there will be a lot of services that we'll be dealing with. We put everything behind API gateway. So all the clients, regardless of wherever they're hitting it from, whichever platforms they're using, they'll be hitting our API gateway, and then they'll be hitting all of our services. I'm not listing all the services because it's actually quite a lot. And everything is kind of orchestrated with Kubernetes. And that is what the developers, the QA, the DevOps, and all that, they will be also using the microservices, again, for those developer-facing services, right? And this is how we are facilitating the interaction between developers and players. All right, so now it's demo time. At this point, I'm going to turn this over to my colleagues who will be demoing some of the best practices that we do with our microservices architecture, right? So on whenever we do updates, whenever we roll out new features, what do we do in order to stay confident that it's not going to introduce bugs?
Hello, my name is Iqbal. I am QA engineer at Accelbyte. Today I'm gonna show you how we use Postman for testing our backend services. So this is one of our backend services called Basic Service. In each service we have a lot of endpoints. Here I will show you the Postman collection. So one Postman collection is representing the test of the one endpoint. Its collection is consists of 4 steps, which is arrange, act, assert, and clean up. On the arrange section, we do some requests that we'll use on heavy case and negative case. For the example, this is update namespace API. So that means we need to create namespace first on the arrange step. And the happy case and negative case directory is the place where we do the act and assert step. So on the happy case, we test the success behavior of the endpoint to make sure we got the right response code, schema, and data with the Postman test script. While on the negative case, we test the negative behavior to make sure our API is safe and behave correctly. Usually, we test permission and input validation. On the cleanup step, we remove the test data that has been created on the arrange or the act step. For the example, we create the namespace on the arrange step, so we need to delete it on the cleanup step. We store the testing variable on the environment, so we can switch it easily if we want to test the different environment. After we done creating the Postman collection, we export the Postman collection to the collection version 2.1, and the exported collection will be run headlessly with Newman. Okay, alright. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gufran. I'm a QA manager at Accelbyte. Today I'm gonna show you how we use Postman for Canary testing in Accelbyte. Here I'm showing you the flow of how we use Postman in the Canary deployment. So, the first step, when engineers merge their code to the master branch of the Bitbucket repository, it will trigger the GitLab pipeline to build a new image version. After GitLab successfully builds new image, it will start the Canary deployment process. After the deployment is done, Canary Flagger analysis will start running the Postman test targeting the Kubernetes pod. When the Postman test is done, it will analyze the test result. When some of the tests were failed, it will send a report to the Slack channel. But when all of the tests pass, it will promote the new image to the production environment, then send the test report to the Slack channel. So the main difference is when all the Postman tests were passed, it will promote the new image version to the production environment. But when some of the tests were failed, it will cancel the promotion for the new image and just sending the failed test result to the Slack channel. And now let's take a look at the repository that contains Postman automation tests. So this is the repository from one of our backend service. We call it Basic Service. Here we can see the Postman v2 directory, and inside the Postman v2 directory, we can see there is one directory and 2 files. We have a directory act and assertion, which contains all of the Postman collections that will be executed in the automation test. Here we can see the list of Postman collections under the user profile module. And we also have the Postman environment files where we define all of the environment variables that will be used to run the Postman collection. And the last one is we have a bash script called new main test that will be used to run all of the Postman collection during the Canary analysis. Inside the bash script, we put the value of the environment variables, but we can also set the value dynamically depends on the target environment by putting the environment variables value inside the Kubernetes config map. So when Canary analysis has been started, it will call this new main test file. All right, now let's simulate the Canary deployment and Canary analysis using Postman. Here is the Kubernetes deployment for basic service. And now we are going to modify the Canary deployment to start the deployment process. So let's update the deployment value. Okay, I have updated. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. Yep. Here we get the Slack notification that says the new Canary analysis for basic service has been started. Okay. Targeting the production environment, or we call it the demo environment. So now let's take a look at the Kubernetes pods. Okay, here we can see basics, 2 pods for basic service. One's still red, one's still green. Let's wait for a moment. Okay, all green. So okay, when the new image version successfully deployed, it will trigger the Flagger automation test pods, these pods. So these pods will run the Postman test. Okay, since the test will take some time to finish, let's wait for a couple of minutes. Yep. Now we get a Slack notification that will show us the test result. Okay, it says the test failed. Yep, we also get a Slack notification that tells us the new image promotion for basic service has been cancelled. This red one. Okay, let's go back to the Postman monitoring channel. Okay, let's see at the test report. It says the test failed and the latest commit was create user profile limit display name to 48 characters. Okay, so this is a new changes. Previously we only allow 20 characters for display name for first name or last name. So let's take a look at the test report. Okay, we have 4 tests that failed. Let's take a look at one of them. Let's see which test that has been failed. Okay, yeah, this one, we found it. So update user profile by ID failed. First name is more than 20 characters. Let's see more detail. Okay, the response code was 200. It means the test is succeed. But let's see the expected. So the test is expecting 400 instead of 200. The test is expecting failed. Why? Because previously we only allow 20 characters for first name or last name. And now it fails because when the test is using more than 20, let's say 21 characters, Previously, it will return failed because we allow only 20 maximum characters. But since the service is as a new changes, when we allow the maximum character to 48 characters, the test become succeed, because when we are using 21 characters, it will succeed. So this is how we monitor, how we check any breaking changes in our backend services. So basically, this is how Postman helps us in doing a safe release for our backend services, because we are able to know any changes based on the Postman test result. So that's it from me. At last, thank you for your great attention, and see you at the next event. Bye-bye.
Hello again. So now, by now, you've seen it's like this is one of the things that we use Postman for, right? Is to build the Canary testing. So whenever we release something to the production, we're confident that it's not going to introduce bugs. This way, we can cut the development time to be a lot shorter, so we can push new features. We can iterate faster to engage, to help with the players' engagement, and also to make game developers happy. Some of the takeaways: online games are growing in complexities, and it requires complex online ecosystem, right? And for us to tame that by adopting DevOps methodologies, help us to iterate faster, which again will help with the player engagement and the game developer satisfaction. Canary testing is a technique that we use in our pipeline, in our CI/CD pipeline, to ensure high confidence in whatever we're churning out. And Postman is a wonderful collaboration platform that we use when we are iterating on API development. We use Postman for other things as well, as like automated test and API documentation and all that, right? But this is one concrete thing that we use for our day-to-day development. Thanks for staying and listening to our talk. From everyone in Accelbyte, I would like to thank you. And if you want to say hi, just send us an email, hello@accelbyte.io. For everyone in the Postman Galaxy folks, we also want to thank you for the opportunity for presenting. Thank you. Bye.